In 1875, a small band of citizens from the town of Azusa carried the body of a murdered carpenter up the craggy slopes of San Felipe Hill. The dead man was laid out in a coffin made of lumber that a few days earlier he had given his life to protect. He had been shot dead by a local tough named William Parker, who had broken into his shop. After a few befitting remarks, the carpenter was lowered into his grave and a plain wooden cross was erected to mark the spot. The man remembered only as Nelson was the first recorded burial at Fairmount Cemetery. The hill where Carpenter Nelson was laid to rest was officially set aside as a graveyard the following year. Although his was the first recorded burial, there is evidence that interments had been taking place there for many years. Come walk with me as I visit some of the San Gabriel Valley's earliest pioneers buried in Fairmount Cemetery. Nestled in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains, the neighboring cities of Azusa and Glendora grew up in Fairmount's shadow. The cities were settled by people from vastly different walks of life, but who were united in the shared hardships that came with a life of agriculture. Through the combined efforts of these pioneers, the foundations were laid for cities that continue to prosper up to the present day. They were people like James Beardsley from Missouri. His potato farm in Azusa made him a small fortune and earned him the title of the Potato King. Professor Francis Fletcher was an educator who became the principal of the Center School in Azusa, a post he held until his early passing at the age of 33. In the 19th century, the span between life and death could be razor thin, and the grave of 24-year-old George Riddell is testament to that. While digging a well on September 30th, 1896, he was killed in a freak accident when a spilled load of earth drove him into the spike of a pickaxe. Beside this tree is the lonely grave of Charles Garland. He and his brother William were lumbermen from Georgia who came to Southern California to go into business for themselves. Unfortunately, their business sense didn't match their tree-cutting skills, and by 1889, unpaid property taxes, defaulted loans, and illegally cutting down trees on government property put them in hot water. It is probably no coincidence that Charles met his untimely death that very same year. With each passing year, the little graveyard on San Felipe Hill received the remains of the farmers, shopkeepers, blacksmiths, laborers, and tradesmen of all kinds. They were mothers and fathers, sons and daughters, many of whom still have descendants who live in the area to this day. By the dawn of the 20th century, newer and larger cemeteries appeared, and Fairmount gradually faded into obscurity. After the Second World War, suburbs began to spread across the San Gabriel Valley and take over what was once vast farmland. So by the 1950s, the old pioneer graveyard was rediscovered and became a popular hangout for kids to play cowboys and Indians or to tell ghost stories. Tragically, it also meant that vandals weren't far behind. Over the years, headstones were broken or stolen, and many bodies were removed from their graves and the skulls and bones taken. Measures were taken to protect the graves from further defilement. A chain-link fence was erected, and a local nursery purchased the surrounding property and made it off-limits. But desecrations continued far into the 20th century. Finally, in 1991, the city of Glendora declared Fairmount an historic landmark. A deeper sense of community has arisen, but the future is uncertain as new housing begins to envelop the old cemetery. But whatever may become of the bones of the Valley pioneers buried in Fairmount, no developer or vandal can wipe out the legacy that they have left behind. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe to my channel today for more grave explorations.